What's up everybody, and welcome to another Sunny review. And today we're taking a look at Northguard here on the Nintendo Switch. And as a fan of games like the Civ series, I got really excited to get my hands on this one. So does Northguard give us a much needed great RTS on the Switch, or are we still begging for more decent strategy games? Let's find out in this review.
Just like mine. Our common enemy had sailed for Northguard.
To start off, Northguard is a real-time strategy game featuring a single-player mode and a story mode. Now, I got to play the story mode for a while, and I have to say this just wasn't my jam, but I appreciated what it was doing. Typically, the way I like to play these games is in the free-form randomness of it all, and going through the story mode featuring 11 chapters and hitting certain check marks to move on to the next chapter just wasn't my thing. Now, the game itself takes place in the era of the Vikings, and the story here is that an important regal horn is stolen and you're on a journey to retrieve it. You'll be going through it chapter by chapter, meeting certain criteria as needed, and then you end up moving on. The game features cutscenes and a slew of lore. This is a great way to learn the game and start off, but I will admit I didn't touch the whole story, as once I learned what I was doing after a few chapters, I was extremely eager to tackle the single player versus AI mode. Now, as a veteran of the Civ series, this is where I typically spend most of my time. These are completely random generated goodness here, and the layouts of the maps are just random. Resources available and what spawns is completely random. You start off having to choose between 6 clans, each with their own special bonuses, and what I loved about all these choices is that they were pretty darn close to being different from each other. They each had their own bonuses and strengths that could complement how you like to play and what you'd like to focus on. Now, I would choose the Bayarki, which I don't think I'm pronouncing correctly, but it felt it was a good starting clan due to the reduced penalties in the use of food and firewood in the winter. Now, when you're creating your game, you can choose up to 3 different AI in a medium map or 5 different AI in a large map, and you have 4 different ways to win the game. You can win via domination, which is simply just overtaking all the other clans. You can win through fame, which is gaining enough territory and doing heroic actions like killing special creatures or building special buildings. You can also win through trade, which is just essentially winning through gaining riches and gold and creating a huge trading empire with everyone. And then there is wisdom, which for a noob to the series was the one that I targeted the most, as it was easy to understand how to achieve this without a guide. Now, wisdom tended to be the way that I tried to win, but it wasn't always the smartest, and it depended greatly on what your territory was near you. And that is the beauty here with this game. Depending on what has spawned when you start up the game, it should and it will influence how you should really aim for victory in any given playthrough. Now, the mechanics of the game are pretty simple, and I think that's a huge plus. You start off gaining people to your village slowly at first, but the ones you do have, you start to assign jobs. The first thing you're going to do is start making a wood cutting lodge, and wood is important to making new buildings as well as keeping everyone warm in the winter. Then you start working on making a scouting lodge, so you can assign people to scout to all the territories near you and unlock the potential for more land for your clan. And any people not assigned to a specific role will then work on foraging and gathering food, as well as building the buildings. So essentially, wood and food are your 2 main resources you're always hoping to have in the net positive, as when winter comes, these are greatly used and become something to manage, as you need a really nice surplus. Now, if you happen to be bad at managing any of this, your clan is going to start to starve, they're going to freeze, and they're going to end up dying very slowly, and therefore when they all die, you end up losing the game. Now, when you're gaining territory and you're moving across the land, there's going to be at times you have to clear out areas to claim them. Now, you'll be fighting wolves, creatures, but you could potentially be fighting your neighbor AI as well. Now, the combat in this game, even though it's an RTS, is not all that fun or exciting, and I definitely had a hard time figuring out how to separate my warband, but there is a lot of combat here, and I was happy to see that. It kept me on my toes as my territories were constantly being attacked, and not even by other players, but by the random creatures who could overtake your lands. Now, there is a ton of little mechanics at play here to manage your village. You have to keep people happy or they won't produce more people to your clan. You have to keep them fed. You have to make sure there's wood, but all the while you have to advance one of the key factors that I mentioned earlier, because once one clan gets one of these goals for victory, you lose the game and it's essentially game over. This was one aspect that I wasn't too happy about. I would have liked an option to continue my playthrough even if I lost. As for the controls and UI, I must mention that this was absolutely 100% well done. This is always my first concern with any type of game like this. These games can get so complicated and have so many moving parts that playing it on a console when ported over to the PC can be such a headache to play with a controller. But Shiro Games did an excellent job here, as everything is just a touch of the button away with any action that you need to perform. Using the D-pad brought up extra information as well, and moving my units was just a matter of holding the trigger and clicking where they needed to be. This was 100% perfect, and I had no complaints here. The second thing that always concerns me with these games on a console is if the performance holds up once the enemy AI and the players start building hundreds of things, and boy, this was a complete mess. When I first started playing Northguard and doing the story mode, and even after the first single player playthrough, I had about 3 hours of no issues. After that, and I started playing about 15 more hours, the lag was present in almost every single game. The game just completely stutters and freezes, and even when there isn't that much built up. Worst part of it is that in the single player mode, there is no autosaves whatsoever. So at one point in a close game that I was engaged in, that was almost done and was about 3 hours in, it ended up crashing on me, and since I never saved it manually, I ended up losing that entire game. With there being no auto saves in single player and the crashing and freezing at a constant rate, it really soured a little bit on what otherwise is a brilliant game. I'm hoping that they can get a big patch in, because otherwise this is a brilliant port with the visuals and the controls. But overall, outside of the big performance issues, I loved Northguard. Matter of fact, this is one of the few games I reviewed, and I guarantee you that I'm going to keep playing it after the review because it's just a complete blast. If you're a fan of RTS, I think you're going to enjoy this one even at full price. But with that said, the performance issues keeps me from giving this one of my higher scores of the year, which is what I would have gladly have done. Unfortunately, the performance issues are so bad, I'm dinging this rather hard. My final score is a 7 out of 10. If they can patch the performance issues, this easily gets a 9 out of 10, and that's without the presence of any online multiplayer. Keep in mind there is an online portion here, but the only way to get a game is to set it up with a buddy, as nobody is queuing up for it on the Switch. But alright folks, that's going to be it for me on this review. If you've enjoyed it, please consider hitting that like button and subbing to the channel if you're brand new and you're looking for more Switch gameplay and Switch review videos. But alright guys, I am out, and as always, I hope you all have a sunny day.